So, hello everyone.
Hello.
Hi,
And
everybody,
yay!
including
So,
you two.
welcome to this special live edition of Feeding the Wolf Possibilities podcast. And as our guests, I have two doctors who will guide us into our topic for today, which is when the world goes crazy, go symphonic. And Dain and Anthony are both doctors of chiropractic who have ventured into this energetic universe that is opening up for change with us, the world, our bodies, and everything. So I thought maybe we start there. What is energy, and what does it have to do with us, our world, and our bodies?
Anthony, go.
Go. Well, I love the title because it was like the timing has been perfect. It's like when the world goes crazy, go symphonic. So, a couple of weeks ago, I had facilitated an opening of the symphony class in Mexico City. And it was around the same time that my son was actually going crazy, literally. He ended up in the psych ward and is now in a residential program for the next 30 days. And so here I am in the middle of dealing with what we call a beyond, because this was something that I had planned throughout their whole lives for something like this to not happen, right? With all the tools and all that. And so here I am in the middle of this thing with what my son's going through, and I'm having to facilitate this beautiful class. And it was amazing because once I got going, I would spend the morning crying and after class crying, again, facilitated by the amazing Gary Douglas. So here I am going into all this drama and trauma, but when it was time to facilitate class, my whole world went, and I'm like, and I would have moments through the class where I'm like, how am I even doing this? But it was like, not only was there space, but it was like what we were all being together and creating. For me personally, it was such a contribution. It was like, holy shit. So you can have all this madness going on in the world around you and still access this beautiful, miraculous space. And I remember calling Gary. I'm like, what is that? And he said something like, where he is actually, it's not different. They're not disparate realities. It's like, he's on the outer edge of the space you are getting to. And oh my God, it was beautiful. And for me, it was a gift. I didn't know how I was going to get through it, but I did. And I did in a way probably better than I ever have so far. And so, yeah, there's something magical about this symphonic acoustical space that we're able to access through these tools, and the Symphony of Possibilities universe and the energetic synthesis of being universe. And I'm just grateful. I'm so grateful.
Well, it's an acknowledgement of what we actually are. And you have the choice to buy into the drama that everybody else is creating as a reality that we've all been taught that what we've been taught is we have to go toward the thing that has the most charge and the most sort of like, eh. And what this shows us is you can be a space in the midst of anything if you're willing to choose to be it. And just knowing that can be such a gift. And then having the experience of the symphony energies, if you will. And the reason, when you said, I love the title also, Go Symphonic, which is the recognition that we live in a universe that truly is a symphony of possibilities, not a symphony of problems, because problems don't have a symphony. They're more like a cacophony. And so the choice that's available to us is to actually tap into that beautiful energy underneath everything, no matter how ugly somebody's being, no matter how stupid, no matter how crazy, no matter how judgmental. Underneath it and through it is always another choice. And one of the questions that can be helpful is if you ask, what is the beautiful energy underneath this? Because even in the midst of things that look absolutely horrendous, if you look for the gift, you will find it. And one of the greatest ways I know is to ask that question, what is the beautiful energy underneath this? Because it directly engages you with that question, with looking for the beauty. We have another question in Access, which is what's right about this I'm not getting, which is another way to get to a similar place. And it's from the recognition that there's something right about everything that occurs. And even in the case of something quote unquote painful or seemingly unkind, at the very least, there's more awareness of you to be had in how you handle the situation. And oftentimes there's an amazing gift because you realize that you were looking from this sort of pathetic, polarized place. You were looking from a place of judgment, and you always realize that that's less than you actually are. So then it becomes, what else is actually possible for me to choose to be? And then what choices do I have that I haven't acknowledged that if I actually made those choices would change the situation and change how it's showing up for me?
Mm-hmm.
And let me do a super quick catch up. So Gary Douglas, that Anthony was talking about, is the founder of Access Consciousness, and the Symphony of Possibilities is an energetic modality that both Anthony and Dain uses when they work, and that is developed by Dain. And going back to what you were saying, Dain, with that we have this choice. So a lot of people today would probably say that the world seems really crazy and they really wish it would calm down, you know, kind of go back to the normal order of things. Could you talk a little bit about how the symphony of change and how it works in times of turmoil?
Well, it's based on, well, so what we do is called access consciousness. You probably know that. And consciousness is where everything exists and nothing is judged. So we actually have a definition of it. And in order to create a problem, you also have to be functioning from a judgment. No judgment, no problems. No conclusion, no problems. No wrongness, no judgment. No conclusion, no problems. And so what happens is we've all been taught in this world that we need to come up with a better conclusion in order to create what we would like, or in order to change something that isn't working. And in actuality, what we need to do is we need to get out of the conclusion. And one of the things I've said to people recently that seems to get people to an awareness is there's a lot of things that are real, but they're not necessarily true. And reality is created wherever two or more people align and agree on a point of view. And the more people that align and agree and say, oh yeah, that's real, you know, oh my God, things are going to hell in a handbasket. The more people align and agree, the more real it seems. What you want to ask is it true? Because something that's true will always make you lighter. And we notice that so many of the things that seem real to people don't make us lighter. And so what occurs is this symphony energy, which is, you know, from my point of view, it's like through and within every molecule. We just have a way of accessing it to contribute change to people and to contribute a sense of possibilities where maybe there hasn't been one in the past. But knowing that that's there and then tapping into that movement, what it does is it allows you, it's kind of like, oh, I just had my example leave my head. But there's a movement with it. And you know how it's like, if you're in the stream, you can easily, if you're going along with the stream, you can easily move to a different place, a different space. Whereas if you're stopped, it takes more effort to get moving because you're overcoming inertia. And so what this symphony energy really is about is this movement that the entire universe is. You know, because the earth never stops spinning. It never stops spinning around the sun. The sun never stops spinning. The planets never stop. The moon, it's like none of it ever stops. And neither do we. The only time we stop is when we take a fixed point of view and solidify it. And this allows us to melt it.
Well, so Anthony, when you were facilitating the symphony class, and then you went out and cried because all these things were going on with your son. So what was it for you that was more real? The class or?
The class, you know, and it was just really cool because it what I did was I also reflected upon, I don't mean to be morose, but like the day that, you know, the kid's mom committed suicide was like, you know.
Hey, you can go ahead and be morose. You started with, you know, hey, by the way, my son is crazy and I'm facilitating magic. So, you know, go wherever the heck you want to go, brother.
That's right. Well, you know, and it's crazy. And so I was like, wow. And just to look at where I was then and where I am now, it was like, I wasn't as caught up in it. Like it like what Dain said, it's like, it gets you to go beyond what you've decided is, true that's actually not true. It's just what's showing up right now, and you don't have to be at the effect of it in that moment. So for me personally, it created space where I'm like, okay, this is my world. This is my reality. This is what's actually true for me, and what I know is possible throughout everything in life, just even the mundane things in life. And so it was just a gift for me. And I'm like, wow. And to be able to have that awareness in that moment when you're supposed to be in fight or flight, what a gift it was. And you can't teach that to anybody. You just, it's like you have, it's like, yeah, you can't teach it. It's just something that's sort of like, and that's what we create in these classes. It's like these people begin to access this space beyond the problems.
Well, I want to acknowledge a couple of things here. Number one, you experienced something that is so horrendous it would have taken most people off the track for the rest of their lives, which is your wife choosing to take her life years ago. But the way you were with that and the way you were with your kids, and it's such an interesting thing that we're talking about this, because anybody else looking at your life right now with your problems and all that, recognize it applies to the whole spectrum. And so, but like, imagine what it's like to be able to have space even in the presence of whatever appears to be going on. And so, and also, it's like the other thing that I think we're being shown here by Anthony's conversation is it's not about being perfect. It's not about like, oh my God, I'm so bad and wrong because I'm having a problem today. No, it's like, I'm crying this morning. Oh, I'm in the middle of being this. So I'm okay. I am actually choosing this now. Okay, I'm crying tonight. And it's like, dude, cry when you need to, and then keep going. And that's really what it's about. And it's also this awareness in the sense of underneath everything else, there is a benevolent universe supporting us. People may be assholes. People may be idiots. We may be idiots. You know, okay, fine. Yes. And what else is actually possible, and what's actually within and through it all that's actually supporting us? And what if we recognize that our value is not diminished by these things that we experience that are very intense or that we feel wrong about? What if we didn't have to feel wrong about them anymore? What if, and part of what the symphony shows you is, and this universe of energies and spaces shows you, is that you can be present with whatever it is, and you don't have to go into the wrongness, and you don't have to live in the wrongness, and there's always a possibility beyond it.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about the symphony also at this constant movement, right? It was the river and the flow of the river. So how much is actually these parts of crying or having things come up part of the symphony, not at all separate from it?
That it's it's symphony energies is part of everything. It's in everything. There is no separation, and that's the beauty of it. It includes everything and judges nothing, like Dain says before. And that's what the gift of all the tools of access are, is to help us to access and that awareness.
Well, and the interesting part about it is it's nothing that's separate from any of us. It's there right now, you know. It's like it's within the space between the molecules, you know. And one of the things that scientists said and say is that every molecule has consciousness. And it's such an interesting thing to recognize that this is a practical way of accessing it and living with it and being with it, that gives us not only more choice, but more of a sense of being included in the world around us, and less of a sense that the world is happening to us and at us, and it's not something we desire.
Well, I'm also wondering, because Anthony, you were saying, hey, you can't teach this, and I guess you mean teach it in words. So how do you step into the symphony? How do you find it?
You asked me this a long time ago, and the one word that I would use is vulnerability. Walls and barriers down, and and the whole universe starts to open up to you. But there is something to be said about the tools that we use too, that to me provides sort of like an easier access to this world. And, you know, it's God, you know, Dain and I, we both know as chiropractors, we've studied 1,000 different techniques before we came to Access. And the reason why we're still facilitating Access consciousness to this day is because it works. These tools work, and they provide a way to access this thing that, I mean, I wish there was a better word, but magic. If there was a better word than magic, this magical space of possibilities. And it's like, and it takes one beyond what they've decided their limitations are. It takes people beyond their story and the traumas and dramas they've had, the abuses they've had. And so here we are, you know, and we're still at it. Why? Because we know it works. And I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Well, it does. And then when you started to facilitate symphony classes, what was it like? And what is it like now?
Was that me or Anthony? You were
no,
asking?
you.
Oh, goodness. Well, it's an interesting thing because I want to mention one other element, because you said, like, how do we get it? You are it. And now what? It reminds me of the way, let me answer this first, which is, it reminds me of, I did, long before Access, I was in chiropractic school, and I went to a Qigong class with some friends of mine. And all of my friends were the energetic ones. And I was like an energetic idiot. I didn't think I got energy at all. And so we're in this Qigong class, right, with this Qigong master that I've never met before. And we're in this little community center room, you know, and he's like, okay, hold the ball of energy. I love this man. He was so sweet. And I still just I just want to talk like him because I love him so much. And he's like, you know, and he's like, hold the ball of energy and then just move as it moves and see what your body wants to do. And my body started moving. And I was like, whoa, this is interesting. He would come along and he's like, look, chi is within every cell. It's within the universe. Basically, we would probably call it consciousness. Who knows? Like consciousness and movement, right? And almost like a symphony of possibilities. Whoa. And he came along and he would do something, use his chi to contribute to mine, and it would open up, and this stuck place would open up. And at one point, I was like, I looked like I was doing ecstatic dancing, you know, all over the place. Yeah. And all of my friends were looking at me like, you don't get energy. We do. You're the energetic idiot. And I was like, I don't know what's happening, but this feels so good. This is awesome. And I was able to access it partially because somebody didn't have a judgment of me like everybody else. This was not one, because I, like a lot of you out there, done a lot of spiritual stuff. And when you do a lot of anything, people start taking points of view about you based on your points of view about you, et cetera, and et cetera. He didn't have a point of view. He was just there and perceiving the energy, and it unlocked my world. I was different after that. And this is what we see with people who do opening of the symphony, for example. And what Anthony does not yet realize, because he's newer to facilitating this, is his presence opening up to this, along with all of our presence and opening up to this, creates that becoming an integral part of someone's world. And whether they want to cognitively get it yet or not, that takes a while to realize that this is available to us. But that I realized after, so to go into your the answer to your actual question, is the way it used to be was, it was a lot of energy expended and a lot of talking to try to get people past their mental barriers to recognize that there's this thing called miraculousness out there, and it's available to each of us, not just if you're some saintly creature or some perfect person or you've been studying it for 30 years. And my biggest challenge was letting people know they could do it and be it too. And it used to be in a symphony class, like if we look at a symphony, you know, where there's so many different instruments playing in concert so beautifully. Oh, it's amazing. Well, what it used to be is about 200 people banging an out of tune triangle in the corner. Not only was it out of tune, but it was out of step with everybody else, you know? And I was like, oh my goodness. And this was years ago. And I'm like, well, and yet I would see these pockets where this symphony became available to somebody, and their life would change, and the person they were working on, because you get to work on other people with this. And what I started seeing is more and more and more of that. And it started becoming this sense of there is an actual symphony going on here. Each person in their body is a contribution, even the ones that don't think they are. And we are opening up something that is unique and beautiful, that is an acknowledgement of each being, each person, as a gift. Once again, whether they're willing to receive that gift in that moment or not is not relevant. The fact is that it becomes something that they can access from that point forward in a totally different way, just from having been part of the class and participated in whatever way that they have. And that's part of the beauty for me, is it's there in a way now where, so I started and I facilitate this class called Symphony of Possibilities, where you got to do several classes to get there, because otherwise it just was not possible for people to access this. And I tried it with lower prerequisites, and it was like I might as well be speaking Chinese to a Greek guy who's translated into Russian by an Italian guy, none of whom have ever spoken English. It was like that, just did not work. As I increased the prereqs, I realized people could start to access it. And once again, that was, 10 years ago, whatever it was. But now we have the opening of the symphony that somebody can go to after the foundation class, and people are getting it. We have the intro to the symphony the symphony intro nights, where people who've never done any of this walk in, kind of like me and Qigong, man. They walk in and it's like, oh yeah, of course. And you're like, of course? What do you mean, of course? I put my blood, sweat, and tears in making sure people can get this. And then I realized, oh, of course. What that lets me know is, holy shit, it's actually working. This is us.
So I was going to mention exactly that people can come into an intro class and get it to a certain extent. So one, why is that? Why has it changed that way in the world? What made it more accessible or available?
I'd say it's consciousness becoming more available. It's us having more access to our beings as we let go of many of the structures of how things had to be. And people will come to Access now and say, okay, well, what does it do for me? I'm like, everything. If you ask somebody after any Access class, what'd you get? What changed in your life? They're like, well, everything. I don't know how to explain it, but I just look through different eyes. I have a sense of space in my life now. I have a sense of connection to things. And that has become more and more and more available, even as, once again, we go to your title for this, even when the world looks crazier, my sense is the world is trying to prove that it's crazier. So those of you who are stepping into being more miraculous will buy it and go backwards. And there's all kinds of things out there trying to make that happen, but you don't have to listen to them.
So if you look now in the future, so here we are, whatever the symphony is today. So what are you both getting? Where's the symphony heading?
Well, I think we know better not to project and all that, but gosh, how it's evolved since I've been in Access about 12 years ago. It's like, wow, and to actually watch Dain do it like alone for all that time, bro. Wow. I mean, you really carried a big energy on your back, just the entity of this universe, but also people, and so, but it's where I see it going is where, as we all begin to step into this universe and facilitate this, I don't know, I just see a world of greater possibilities, and where, it's like where consciousness becomes the demand, the thing that's being put out in the world instead of all this other crap that we see. I don't know, that's my point of view, is just, as we say, creating a reality beyond this reality without sounding like all, esoteric and all that stuff, but truly like something else than what we've been led to believe is only possible.
Well put. And I would agree. I'm not going to put specifics, but very much like Anthony is talking about, my sense is that people will start to become aware that they are more and more and more miraculous. that ask and you shall receive actually applies to them and actually works. And within that, see, it's one thing to, because we talk about access consciousness, and if you look at consciousness as awareness of everything with no judgment, but also the inclusion of everything with no judgment, then another synonym for it is oneness. And what's interesting is what I've seen is the more people have access to that, the more their life just works, but also the happier they get. People start waking up happy, and people try to bring them down because you're not supposed to be so happy. And they're like, I'm sorry, I just can't be brought down anymore, And so I see this being part of what is on offer. And what I really see is everybody having access to this symphony. Whereas there may be a lot of us, like Anthony, me, a bunch of us that are facilitating people to know that they can open up to it, by being that facilitator of it, like the Qigong master of SOP, if you will. But my sense is in a farther forward future, it'll be what we all be, and we'll use it all the time. And we won't even think about it, because where all of this really comes from is your being. And when you're being something, you don't think about it. You don't try to define it. You just be it. And you just, if you can get to the point where you wave your hands and have a pile of gold or a hot plate of spaghetti show up, that's friggin' awesome. And we see elements of possibilities of things shifting and changing really quickly. And I think it's going to become our world eventually.
So if somebody who listens to this right now really have the sense that the world is going crazy, and how do I get at least a little more symphonic, what would you guys suggest? Doctors and all.
I would start with access consciousness bars. That's where Dain told me to start when we talked on the phone over 12 years ago. And it's and it was amazing. It was such a beautiful thing. I'd never met him, and he called me and he's like, I just want you to know the universe has your back. And I'm like, where do I start? He's like, get to an access consciousness bars class and start running your bars. And that's how it all began for me. And here we are.
Boom. I second that also. Plus, we have so many resources available. And if you're interested in the symphony, there are symphony intro classes being offered, or Taste the Symphony. I don't remember all the names. I am so bad at that. And also the opening of the symphony that Anthony facilitates, the SOP that I facilitate. And also, like, walk out in nature and see what it's contributing that you never noticed before. Walk out there, lower your walls and barriers, feel your feet on the earth, and just be there for a bit. And just see and start to listen for the symphony that is all around you, that you haven't necessarily taken the time and space to notice before, and let it in. That doesn't have to be a significance. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a non-significance. But it's like, go out and lower your walls and barriers and just let nature show you what it has to offer. And then ask to be shown what part of this world you are part of, and what contribution you can be, and how can you play with that. And we have so many ways of interacting with access, but once again, I highly recommend the bars, like Anthony said, because it's something that will be a gift for you and others for the rest of your life. And it literally saved my life when I had a bar session 24 years ago. And then there's another thing that I did recently called the Real Great Reset. And it's a $15 program that will begin the change of pretty much everything of your life. And that's another suggestion too.
Oh, I mean, that's like the gift of the universe right there. It's like all of access you've managed to put in that amazing call series for $15. I mean, good Lord, it should be $15,000.
It's a symphonic reset for sure.
There you go. Exactly. That.
So Thank you both. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this and introducing the symphony, future, past, current, to everyone listening, and what else is possible. And we're putting some of the links in the right under this post, but you can also just go to accessconsciousness.com/symphony. And there is so much information on all the classes that Dain can't remember the name of, and all the classes that we did remember the name of. So welcome to come and play. Bye.